Clay, to start this one off, I have a kind of dumb anecdote that might only make sense to me and Amy, my wife, because she played basketball in high school, and we laugh about this story where she was at some sort of like basketball game where they were traveling to some other school, and they were in the middle of like a intense timeout with the game on the line, and the coach is on his knees drawing up a plan on one of those little white erase board basketball things where you break out what you're going to do. And she said that on the other side of the gym, there were this group of fencers, like kids were fencing in competition, like the sword stuff.
Ooh, that's fun.
Yeah, and she's like, it was interesting. And like our coach was just trying to get us to pay attention to this play that he's drawing up, but none of us had really seen fencing, and it looks incredible. So they're all kind of looking over him. And he's trying to explain to these girls like about the play they're going to do. And all of a sudden she said he snapped because the game is on the line. He snapped. He said, "Quit watching the damn sword fighters," which me and her always laugh about. And we say that in a variety of situations, which are not really particularly appropriate. But I felt the same way while watching this episode with Elnor and the Borg Queen having fisticuffs at it. And I felt so desperately that I just wanted to stop watching the damn sword fighters.
You mean because everything else was more important and more riveting?
No, just the broad sense that I wished it was all over. I wished everything had just ended. Yeah. I wish that the blue filter was pulled away and my eyes could go to rest on something else. But
yeah,
here we are.
I don't. What is this show? I'm not really sure.
It's almost over. It's almost done.
It is fascinating. It is a fascinating exercise in, I would like to say narrative storytelling, but I feel like it's kind of barely passing that mark at this point. And yeah, I'm not really sure where to start with this.
Let's start with the straight facts, Jack. This is called Hide and Seek. It's the 9th episode of the second season, the penultimate episode of the second season of Star Trek Picard. It came out on April 28th, 2022, written by Matt Okumura and Chris Derrick, directed by Michael Weaver. In-universe date is 2024, 2310-ish. In this episode called Hide and Seek, Picard and his crew fight for their lives as they come under attack from the new incarnation of an old enemy. But to survive, Picard must first face the ghosts of his past. Seven and Raffi have a final showdown with Jurati. Yep, another log line. It's another one of the. I know it's not episodic, but it's another one that when you read this in the future, you'll forget which episode this is because the log lines are so vague about what they are. I don't know how I would just say I would define this one as I'd say this is the one where they have a shootout on the chateau. That's the Picard episode that this one is. That's a better way to describe it, I think. So
an embarrassing shootout.
Why are the mercenaries Borg?
Great question.
Why was that done? And like they don't gain anything from being Borg.
No. Why are there 50 to 75 of them fighting 4 people and an old broken robot man
with only one gun, I think, or 2 guns. Yeah,
2 guns. They've got 2 guns. Then one of them gets shot and zapped out of there. And how are they not killed in about 35 seconds? Like it was, that whole set piece was just embarrassing. It was embarrassing.
For the production or for the mercenaries?
Both.
Or both.
Both. Yeah. I mean, as far as like, the mercenary comment card, not getting high marks on that one, I don't think. But it was just like production-wise, it was laughable.
My favorite sequence was when there's like a little pause and Spiner as Soong and Picard are yelling at each other. Like Spiner's out in the fields and he's talking to Picard, and honestly, they're talking about something which I wasn't really tracking, wasn't paying attention to, but I love that it ended. Soong has some line, he's like, well, let's just shoot him then. And the mercenaries like start shooting as he's sort of in frame with them. And he walks off like as this gunfight is going on. And it's like, this is pretty awful. This is terrible.
Yeah. It's not great.
No, it's
not great.
I don't know. I don't know where to start with this one. I guess I always like to start off these Picard ones with a sort of mental frame of mind. I've pretty much given up. I mean, it's now like official.
We're gonna lock you in the room. We're gonna throw you in the room, and then Alistair, 70 years from now, is gonna misremember. Man, that. Sorry, I'm gonna be all over the place with this.
I am too. I tried to make notes for this one. I don't really have any notes. I'm kind of winging it, and it's probably gonna show. But I don't know.
Okay, we may as well just start with the mother stuff then. I know that this was not the intended reaction for this show in the story that they were telling us. But when they revealed that his mother had hung herself, I burst out laughing.
Yeah, I laughed too.
I could not believe it. And I could not believe that's what we were driving towards. I mean, I had a sense that was coming, but
yeah, it's obvious. Well, that's what's surprising about it is that it's so expected, you know? There's no shock to it whatsoever.
Yeah. And like, I'm not sure after 9 episodes of this what Picard is supposed to take away from this. It all just felt so much like he was it was like trying to walk somewhere with a grandparent, and then they just keep stopping and just telling anecdotes about when they were kids. And it's like, okay, that's great, but we have to get to the bus stop before the bus leaves. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, 50 years ago, this used to be a candy store. It's like, that's fantastic, Grandpa. Awesome. Great. And it was like, after all that stuff played out, I just couldn't wrap my mind around like what the point of any of it was. Yeah. And I'm sure it will play into some long speech he gives next episode or something. But even still, like, I didn't find like he came away with anything meaningful other than just sort of being like, yeah, so that's it was
unfortunate.
That was unfortunate. And like, on top of that, his mother is like giving this plea to remember me at my best. And I was just like, Jean-Luc, when you remember me, please remember me as a battered wife and not, and please vilify your father. Like, I just don't understand this stuff. I don't know. It was just, what a awful storyline. Not to mention the fact, I mean, this is kind of, again, jumping around. This show is supposedly about trauma, and you spend all of your time on this story that ultimately doesn't really mean anything and really nobody gives a shit about, when you have an actual character who has actual lived trauma in 7, who is basically sidelined, and then the completion of her story arc up to this point is her life is saved by forcing her to relive the worst moment of her entire existence that has haunted her for her entire life.
Yes. But
I don't understand.
But does something to the Borg to lift them up, raise their spirits or something. I think that Picard's mother is interesting just because it's such a predictable ending. Like, there was really no shock in any of that. The most shocking thing is that it's a Star Trek show, and it's like, we're going to get a full frame of his mother hanging from the neck in this, and that'll be that. But it doesn't, as you're saying, I don't really know what this is supposed to be saying about Picard, or how far this carries with him, or what he's doing, or how they're trying to squeeze it into canon when he's had sort of delusions and daydreams of his mother before, and now to say that that's some kind of artificial memory that isn't really accurate about what it is. I don't know.
I didn't know that his mother had appeared to him before on TNG.
Yeah.
And I was very tickled to find out that they cover that in this episode.
Yes.
With like a throwaway line where he's like, sometimes I envision my mother as an old woman serving me tea.
Yes.
Like, oh, okay.
Which is the script log line description of that scene that he sees his mother. Yeah. I think this comes back to my core thing, is that I really felt during this episode I had to actively be mindful and remind myself that this is Jean-Luc Picard. Like, this character has a past. And because I watched the show and I don't really feel that way about him. It feels just like it's old Patrick Stewart in some sort of sci-fi action adventure show.
He felt really old in this episode.
He's hobbling around trying to get around the chateau. It's really unfortunate. But it doesn't. It's just the fact that none of this really seems to tie back to TNG in any way, which is almost a positive if you value TNG, because I don't think I'm ever going to make a mental connection that this is the same character who does all those things, and it doesn't really impact me when I go back to TNG. I don't think, and I won't be thinking about Picard's mother hung herself. It won't make any sense in the like the totality of his character, but I'm not going to think about it because I don't think that this really feels like Picard in any way. He's just not. There's no core to his character that makes me feel like this is an older version of the TNG character, and he's actually doing something with what that characterization was, drawing it into this new show and this new series, and actually doing something with it. I don't think there's anything there.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of on Doctor Who last season. I think I don't know what constitutes a season anymore with Doctor Who, but there was a big season-long arc that ended with basically kind of blowing up the entire concept of the show in a way that was neither helpful nor satisfying.
Yeah.
And because that show is so kind of inexorably linked to everything that came before it, you kind of can't. You kind of come away going like, "Oh man, you just hobbled the whole thing." You know, as long as this stays in canon, it makes it less fun.
Right.
Luckily, I don't think that this show is tied to anything meaningful to the point where that should bother anybody.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think watching this show and coming away going like, yeah, that was pretty bad is going to taint or has to taint anything that came before it.
No.
You know, because it's not like this. They didn't go back and spend 10 episodes inside Best of Both Worlds Part 1 or something and ruin it.
They could have. They could have.
Sure.
They could have linked it so strongly to the original show, which would probably be the show actually being better than what it is. But if it maintained this kind of storytelling, could actually damage the character more than they have, for whatever that's worth, or if it is worth anything at all. But he just. I was really struck by the fact that I had to remind myself that this character exists already in hours and hours and hours, hundreds of hours of on-screen time. And here it's just him being chased around in this like fantasy dungeon underneath his house looking for his mother. And I don't know what else there is for him there.
Well, I mean... I was kind of hoping that he was going to get to a point and then Janeway was going to show up and be like, Jean-Luc, what are you doing inside my Hollow novel?
Janeway gets a name drop here, too. That's probably
she does.
Yeah.
In another very questionable storyline.
Storyline at the 11th hour decision to insert some kind of story that explains what Seven is thinking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, here she... Janeway tells Seven says that she was never allowed to join Starfleet because she was a Borg. When I think someone on the Discord mentioned that Icheb in last season was in Starfleet and he was an ex-Borg. So apparently it's not. Right. It's
Picard.
It's something about you, Seven, and Picard too. Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that was the worst kind of. We need to explain this quickly. Let's throw in some backstory dialogue. It was.
Yeah. So that's why she joined the Rangers, because even though Janeway vouched for her, Starfleet had some imaginary problem and didn't allow her to join up. So
unbelievable.
I don't know. Is this an episode that's better for like a bigger discussion? There's so much wrong with this one.
I will say,
technically, it's just incredibly stupid.
I will say, I actually enjoyed some of the Borg Queen and Jurati stuff a bit.
Yeah.
I enjoyed their back and forth until the end when they finally did it. They finally had one of these shows where they solve a problem by just being sad.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally the way that Jurati solves the problem. Is she's just really sad.
Well, so we can. I think that's the other big thing about this one. I don't like the Jurati and Borg stuff at all. I don't like any of the Borg stuff here.
Yeah.
Really, which is that the Borg have basically been now redefined as their whole purpose for existence is because they just want to have friends.
Yeah, the Borg Queen has assimilated countless species because she's mad no one ever invited her to anything.
Yeah, she has a serious FOMO going on, and I mean, it's just so antithetical to what the Borg represent, which I think is like their original conception is far more interesting than anything that they've done since then. And this is another, I don't even know how to react to this. It both completely undermines what the Borg are supposed to represent and makes them pathetic at the same time. Really pathetic. It's almost like it's a childish viewpoint or something. Like there's something more philosophically devastating about the Borg in that you lose yourself to this bigger thing, that you have that you're a small cog in the machine, that you don't mean anything to them. The Borg willingly sacrifice themselves or others in the cause of the cause of like the greater good, which is noble in some way. But it's also just like you don't recover from what they take from you. It's the ultimate like undoing and like destruction of a soul, basically, is what the Borg is supposed to represent.
Right.
And now it's just you were lonely. You didn't have any friends, and this is the way that you got around it. And the Borg doesn't even really give a good fight back to that point. She agrees with it largely.
Right. Yeah.
That's the thing that drives me nuts. Like if Jurati was just making a metaphor for what she thought the Borg were doing, it's one thing, but she's defining the Borg origin story in a way that is completely bizarre.
Yeah. I really couldn't wrap my head around that one. And to have the solution be that, what if we just assimilated people who need it?
Yeah, they want it. They want it bad.
Yeah. Let's all the lonely people in the world, let's assimilate them and turn them into cyborg zombies. Man.
So
I
have to read. I have to read
know.
Trek Core's. Trek Core's reviews have been kind of insane, and this one was insane. So I'll read what they wrote about the Borg. Through the prodding of Jurati, who is slowly being assimilated as the new Borg Queen, we can see the Borg for the first time being presented a new way. Instead of being the same old Borg, you can read Borg as, quote, corporation or, quote, government, hell-bent on acquiring power and status, they can alternatively turn their focus towards embracing the strength in people they've previously discarded as weak. In Jurati's vision, the Borg could be a real collective for the first time, a collective based not on assimilation, but salvation. Imagine the resources of the delusory organization ICE being used to help people so that they could contribute to a community for the benefit of everyone. Sounds like something pulled from the Federation Charter. If the producers of the show aren't making a direct correlation that ICE should be abolished and instead turned into a governmental arm designed to integrate people into new communities to help make something distinctive, beautiful, and better, then allow me to do it right now. Abolish ICE. Put the resources into communities to help them.
Oh boy.
I don't, it's a terrible review, but I think that it's just I don't even see what they see as the benefit of this Borg change here, which is to turn this cyborg killer race that takes things from you. Does this mean that the new Borg don't speak as a collective or anything like that? Like, what are they in that case? They're no longer Borg.
Right. Yeah. There's some implication that for any of this to actually work or make sense, it has to be like a here's the Borg technology, but you can keep your mind or something.
Yeah. And but what's the the whole point of the technology is to make them soulless. Like that's
right.
That's why Seven despises it. You know, it's like the
right.
pain that she went through for that whole situation. So if it's just a bunch of It's a bunch of like beta males and losers who want to join this friendship cult and then augment themselves and plug in. I don't know. That's really weird. At that point, the Borg vagina ship at the start should have been like a heart shape or something like that instead of what we ended up with. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
What does that Borg shape represent at this point? It should represent something, but it's not. If that's the way that they're going to go, I don't understand. I don't know.
Like as Jurati was making that appeal to the Queen there, I could kind of see the intention that this Trek Core reviewer is talking about. And even at that moment, I was like, this is not the way to go with this. You are displaying the naivete of your position that so many people will attack you for in a way that is kind of embarrassing.
It's extremely embarrassing.
Because, like, sure, yeah, I understand the idea here that maybe the Borg can be repurposed for good or something, or to help people. Okay, fine, sure, but like this execution of it just is, it's like in Jason X when this is going to be a weird comparison to make.
Well,
it's like in
luckily
Jason
I've watched
X,
the movie for the Patreon.
Yeah, I know. It's like in Jason X where the guy goes, "It's okay. He just wanted his machete back." Yeah. And it just feels so. You're right. It feels like if all of that dialogue had come from, what's her name? The doctor.
Not Jurati.
No, the Hispanic doctor.
Oh, I forget her name. Teresa, right? Something like that.
Yeah, if it had all come from her son, I think it would have landed much easier, because it is a very kind of childish outlook.
Yeah.
You're dealing with the Borg, and your solution is, hey, I'm sad too. What if we just got a bunch of sad people and hung out and made all of our lives better? And you're missing the mark here, guys.
I mean, I can see a story where Jurati is lonely and the appeal of the collective starts to interest her in a way. There's a sense of belonging. I'm sure there is some kind of personality that would think that. But I think in order to maintain the Borg, what Jurati has to learn through that is that she has strength within herself outside of them. There's like it's almost a lesson of like, you don't need others' approval or sort of buy-in in a way that you might think you do, especially if it comes at such a cost as giving up your own soul to join them. Right. This is not convincing them that because I'm sad, I think that you're also sad, and using that as an explanation for a species that has, butchered billions and caused like untold suffering and everything. It doesn't even really track, because why does this mean that the Borg Queen just is unaware of what she's been doing, and it only took Jurati at this point to realize that she's lonely? Why hasn't the Borg Queen been satiated to this point? Or like, why discarding the people that they think is weak is what she was actually after the whole time? It's like metaphysical, emotional nonsense. I don't understand it. There's no core to this that makes me go, this is how a real person would react to all of this stuff.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it too is they're doing this with the wrong character, because I think we were kind of speculating they were going to do this last season, but if you put Seven in that position, Seven at least understands the Borg and is in a position where she has freed herself from the collective and freed herself from this horrible machine, and now going back into it has the personal strength to see how to change the system, kind of, if you want to go that way, right? She's changing the system from inside. If she becomes this new Borg queen, or maybe she doesn't even have to do that, but like she has the wherewithal and the clout within this world to make it believable that she is now changing the intention of the Borg and giving people their lives back and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Instead of Jurati, who's just talking out of her ass because she doesn't have anybody else to talk. Like, it's it carries no believable weight whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm still,
and it's not like, what is the satisfying character arc here supposed to be? That Jurati finally found a friend and now she's going to force everybody else to be her friend?
Yeah, I think so. Right. And she has to start the new collective that will move into the future timeline, right? Like she doesn't go, Jurati's going to live the 400 years as the Borg queen, correct?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, she has to then get to the end where the Borg join the Federation at the end of the season.
You're trying to parse this out. I cannot wait to see how they try to wrap this shit up. Cannot wait.
Well, that's the other funny part of this TrekCore article. It says this could have been a satisfying season finale that would have left just a few threads left untamed.
Yeah, just a couple.
So they're watching a different show. It's the Karl Rove or whoever that quote about different realities or whatever.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so the Borg will be interesting. We'll see whether or not that comes back to anything. This one, I felt a lot of artificial string pulling in this episode, which seems to exist for the whole time. I was mostly surprised that there's no Q in this one, when I would have almost bet my life that he would have made an appearance in this episode. Elnor's reappearance is seems like it's contractually obligated. They realized at the penultimate episode that the character's guaranteed at least a certain amount of episodes or something to appear in, and they stick them in here. None of this makes any sense, because my big issue here is, why does Jurati tell the Borg Queen that he has the code within him? And just
great question.
Just leave him alone. Just let him go.
Why are they shooting at him?
I don't know.
He's a hologram.
Well, they're Borg. They're not thinking clearly.
But I mean, the Borg Queen is controlling him.
She is, but I guess
she understands how this shit works.
And is it First Contact? Do they try to assimilate the Borg, the holographic doctor, the EMH character?
Right.
Yeah. So they just don't recognize him. What else?
The Elnor thing brings up an interesting element. I almost think they should have brought this holographic Elnor in earlier in the season.
Sure. Because for what purpose? I'll ask you.
Because the stupid shit with Jurati is so bad, and they try to wrap it up here by having her tell her true feelings to a hologram.
Do you mean Raffi or Jurati? Sorry.
I'm sorry, Raffi.
Raffi.
Tell her true feelings to a hologram, and then and then have the hologram go, as I'm only a hologram, I can't really tell you exactly what's going on, but I do know that his final thoughts were of love and not of resentment. And I think there could have been something more interesting there if this hologram of Elnor had been around the whole season.
Yeah.
And so Raffi could have actually dealt with these things.
Yep. Became attached to him even as a hologram.
Instead of just offhandedly talking about it once every 3 episodes and squeezing it into these other storylines that they don't have room for.
Yeah, it thematically ties into Picard being a robot, right? You're starting to talk to characters who are no longer what they once were. Again, you have to always remind yourself every episode that Picard is a robot at this point.
Oh boy.
But yeah, the Elnor thing, it could have been something about that. You can say it's some sort of putting, your regrets and the suffering that the characters have dealt with in the past is now being sort of brought back at them. It's that same as that Black Mirror episode where the husband dies and is replaced by the robot or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Man, so good.
Just watch that episode instead. But like something along those
that shit
ideas.
is devastating.
Yes, it's a good one.
But yeah, that's kind of what I'm talking about, that kind of vibe.
Yeah, they don't do that. Also, the holographic Eleanor has to open lockers, which I thought was funny. As he's doing his like pick up the guns and they're not impressive enough, do the Pulp Fiction thing of then pick up the katana blade and start slicing people up.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
This is the most actiony of the episodes, and boy, I don't like new Star Trek action. I just don't enjoy it. Give me Scott Bakula running down a hallway with a phaser any day of the week.
I am so like disappointed in the way that this show in particular, I feel like they don't do it nearly as much on Discovery, at least from my memory, but the way that this show treats human life is just appalling. Like especially that scene, like not only are they very nonchalantly just blowing away all these guys, even though I know they are Borgs, but whatever. They're still human to an extent. And,
they're creating a hell of a butterfly effect in other
Yes, I know, right? Do you think young Picard is going to be more scared by his mother hanging herself or running down into the Wolfenstein basement underneath the chateau and seeing the mercenaries sticking out of the walls? But you've got they're just murdering these people, and you even have 7 of 9 of all people saying they're not humans, they're Borg, because that's like the hand of the writer making it okay to kill these people.
Yes, and it's the video game. They can be Nazis or aliens because it's okay to kill them.
And coming from 7 of 9 of all people, it's just like that is a gross misunderstanding of a lot of stuff.
Seven's characterization is odd because I would say that the only strong thread of characterization that she's carried through this new show is that she hates the Borg. Like that's she's almost overbearing in her dialogue. And that scene where you're saying, they're like, what do we do? She's like, fuck them, kill them all. They're just Borg. And then stands up and starts blasting. And I could see that making more sense if it was somehow playing off of Jurati in some way, but it's not because they don't spend any time together. So they don't have time to discuss this kind of thing. Back in the first episode where 7 was the only one who wasn't gung-ho in that weird way that everyone else was about making friends with the Borg and maybe the Borg want to join our team and stuff like that. 7 there felt realistic, but now as this marches onward, it just seems like I don't know what they're trying to say about her doing that because I don't feel that they're tying it into the Borg are a redemption story in any way, and they're not going to embarrass 7 that way. So I don't know where she can go from this point. Yeah,
I don't know. It's really distracting the way that they handle this stuff.
Sticks out. Kill them all. They're just Borgs.
Yeah. The other thing that stood out to me is they continue to hammer home this Sung alternate future plot without any real understanding of how this comes to be.
Explanation or understanding.
I cannot wait until the next episode when hopefully Sung's plan is to delay the launch by hitting it with his car.
They're not going to explain Sung, right? They're not going to actually show us this timeline that he somehow takes over because they realize it makes no sense. Yeah.
Well, the thing that was killing me about it, right? You've got Sung having these war of words with Picard where he's like, I know the future. I become blah, 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 and I take over. And Picard's only answer is, it's a dictatorship.
Yeah.
It's awful. You kill thousands of people. Yeah. You know what Jean-Luc Picard would probably say? Like, I'm referring to this show as Picard. I'm referring to Jean-Luc Picard as the actual character. Jean-Luc Picard would probably relay some story about what the actual Sung family does in the future that he's from, as far as the steps it takes towards creating positronic life and stuff. And he probably would tell him about Data and about how one of his best friends was a creation of a legacy of the Sung family, who was more human than any human he ever, that kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. It's all just angry, angry, angry. Whereas Picard has this knowledge of this alternate future.
Yeah, a better future. Yeah,
a better future where the Sung family, though they are not exactly, nobody's putting them on a dollar bill or anything.
No. Some of them are criminals.
Some of them are criminals, yes. But like ultimately, the future that he's from, the Sung family plays a big part in a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I would focus on Data. I think you're right there. That to mention that Data is a creation of this family, and that Data is because Data is the kind of thing that this Sung is trying to create for whatever reason. He's trying to do something. It's like there's a better version of it out there to prove to him. Yeah.
And be like, and sure, he made a second one that was a little bit more violent and bloodthirsty, but that's not the point. And sure, his ancestor messed with genetic data and created super soldiers that got set free and mixed with Klingon blood, but that's not the point either.
So I will say, Spiner with his shock white hair at this point looks great in this episode. Like when he's in the blue filter and everything, he looks really, really convincing. Or he looks very eye-catching, I think it would be the way to describe it. Yeah, the Sungs. Are we going to see Karen? What's her name? Corey. Right? Corey. Are we going to see Corey again?
I assume we would have to.
Is the last episode 3 hours long?
I don't know. She literally just like ran off into the woods.
She just walked into the ocean, I think. She just fell off a cliff and wherever she went. I still don't really know why Q let her go, right? Why did he do that?
I have no idea.
I don't think she can come back because there's too much to explain about that.
What's going to happen is she's going to show up and she is going to be the one who appeals to Sung not to ram his car into the rocket or whatever.
And that's going to work?
Yes. I mean, in the show, it's going to work. It doesn't work in any narrative good taste, but it's going to work in the show.
What's some people are theorizing on the Discord that Sung's storyline was possibly inserted later as a kind of like another antagonist to add, just because there was too much non-antagonism going on with the Borg Queen and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's actually the case, but it is onto something. And it's noticing how inconsequential he is. Really, like he's not even a character that is really being played by the Borg Queen because he has something to offer. It's not like. No. The most he gives is these mercenaries, but outside of that, there's nothing he accomplishes that is vital to the story or his his theme and characterization is worthwhile spending time with. He does feel like he's just kind of plugged in to create another minor villain that you can have in the show that will fill an episode or two without relying so heavily on the Borg Queen. Because I think as I was saying last episode, I think that the spine of this story is kind of shockingly the Borg story in a way that it doesn't feel like the show realizes that that's the central point of what's going on. And Sung is just like a secondary character for that, for whatever reason. What did you think? I mean, Sung or otherwise about it?
I think the thing with Sung is that, he's probably there because they need someone who can actually do stuff, because the Borg Queen is basically like hamstrung for 8 episodes, and Q may as well not even be in the fucking show for most of it.
Yeah.
So Sung is the only person who has the ability to be active, really, in any meaningful way.
Who's the most failed villain then of this?
The most failed villain?
Who? Antagonist, I guess, would be a better word. I think it's Q, right? It's got to be.
It's got to be. Unless they find a way to wrap that whole thing up next episode, it's got to be Q.
Yeah. Anything With Stewart at the age he is and with the character at the age he is, the only way that you can really make this work is if Q is that like. So from a conceptual standpoint of who are you making this for, right? It's strange to me that they are trying to hip Jean-Luc Picard up, really, because it feels to me like the people who would be really into seeing a Picard at this point in his life show would be totally fine with Picard and Q sitting in a diner for 8 episodes talking to each other.
Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
I don't know.
Rios, does the La Serena have any Megan Thee Stallion on it?
I don't know, Picard. Let me check. Teresa.
Have you heard wet ass pussy?
That's all I want. Both that and Q, I suppose. Those two things in this show. I know we have to head out in a little bit. Let's I don't know. Where's your head? Where's your head at here?
My head is at So it's incredibly frustrating that they end this episode with another fucking like riddle about in order for the mission to succeed, there must be 2 Renees, one who dies and one who lives. Like, okay, whatever, guys, go fuck yourself. Like, I do you have any track of like the only thing I can think of is like
both timelines have to exist. That's what I took.
Both timelines, yeah.
So there's going to be the divergence is going to happen, and both timelines are going to happen because of it. Because we've been, and what the show has been saying is that one of the timelines was destroyed when the characters went back in time, right? So the way that I think this is going to fix it is that the divergence happens, and both timelines are restored back to normal at that point. And
what is normal though?
Well, normal is the Picard timeline happens so that none of the weird retconning of time travel in TNG era has any problems anymore.
Right.
And the bad timeline is just the bad timeline exists in an alternate universe, and we could cross over to it if we wanted to. I don't know what the advantage of that is, but it would happen.
Yeah. Like then what are we doing here then?
I don't know. I don't know what that proves to anybody, but it just proves that it makes the metaphor for 2 Renees make sense. I guess the message there would be that you have a choice. Like, it's all this wishy-washy fortune cookie shit. It's like, you have a, if I chose one path, I could go this. And if I went down the other path, I could do this. It's like, I understand that is intellectually true and philosophically somewhat interesting, but you are doing your best to make it not interesting and not true at the same time.
Yeah. If that's the way they go, it really makes me question what the point of any of this was.
Are we going to meet the amoeba that she meets and talks to or whatever it is?
I hope so. I hope it's like a Lovecraft monster or something.
There's just so much left to do. They have to meet the amoeba.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like where my head is at going into this final episode is like I'm not even there's a lot of stuff to do like bookkeeping wise, right?
Yes.
But I don't know what the story is now at this point because the Borg Queen is gone, so she's ostensibly off the board unless she comes back, which she might, who knows. But like as an antagonist, the Borg Queen is gone. So is the only thing that's left to do stop Sung from messing with the launch?
Yes, I think so.
And like
again, to stop
how
again.
exciting is that going to be? I don't know. But then they got to figure out how to get home, which I'm sure is probably going to involve.
It's Q. Q's going to.
You think it's going to be Q? I thought it was going to be Talon or whatever her name is.
Oh, I think with the amount of time left, it has to be a finger snap from Q, and he fixes.
You think it's going to be the last thing he does before he dies or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they won't be stuck. The timeline will diverge, and they'll be temporarily in one of the timelines, but Q will send them back to their correct time in their timeline. That's just my guess. That's my guess.
And so do you think that the Stargazer sequence that from the first episode is Jurati crossing timelines?
Yes. So both timelines, therefore, at that point can exist, and it'll allow her with the new friendly Borg to come over and join the Federation.
No, Come on. Like,
well, that means in season 3, it'll be a war between the friendly, huggy Care Bear Borg and the real Borg, and we'll see what happens.
See, the reason that sucks more than just the fact that it sounds terrible is like, as I talked about, or as we talked about in the first episode, the idea of the Borg, the Federation being open to the Borg joining them is actually really interesting.
Yes.
Like the fact that the Borg is been decimated to a point that they are changing their tactics and maybe are willing to play ball or something is really interesting. What's not interesting is getting rid of that Borg and replacing it with the nice Borg, who is more than happy to join the Federation because Jurati is the leader, and she's old friends, and they're nice now, and they only assimilate people with missing limbs and who homeless people or something. I don't know.
This is how they clean up the homeless camps. They just assimilate everybody and bring them up into the Borg cube or the Borg vagina ship, and off they go. I don't know. That's just my guess. I'm sure I'll be wrong because the show is so unpredictable in what it's going to do, but those are the two. My question, go ahead.
Is Q gonna snap them back to the Stargazer when the Borg Queen is coming through and everybody's freaking out, and then Picard's gonna go, wait, I know her, she's my friend. And that
would have to, right? So, we still don't know who the Borg Queen is, because that might be Renee Picard, or because she's the only one that he's said to look up to.
Did he not? Well, I mean, he said it to the General Assembly at that speech he did, but
was
yes,
Jurati
he did
there?
say.
I don't think Jurati was there.
I don't know, but yeah, it could be her. Do you think maybe? You don't think that's the thing that she meets, do you? No, that wouldn't make any sense.
No, I don't think that makes sense. I think they've specifically said it's a single-celled organism. The historical record shows.
All right, I think I know what's going to happen. I think Sung is going to, quote unquote, kill Renee.
Yep.
And then I think the Borg Queen is going to pull the old 7 and 9 trick on her and assimilate her. And that's how she's going to die and live.
Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah, that would make sense. And that allows, yes, you could therefore split the timelines at that point with the sort of difference of understanding or whatever it is. Yeah, it's
like I'm thinking if Renee Picard ends up in that situation, then like well, yeah, I don't know how they get back, because I was thinking maybe the way that they get back at that point is like they have to use the Borg ship to cross timelines.
No, I think they have to snap back into the Stargazer scene, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
that's what I would expect. We'll see.
With the new knowledge of everything that they've just been through.
Yeah, and as you say, Picard just tells everyone to stop and not do the auto-destruct.
It's my cousin.
Hello, Renee.
Good to see you.
What does Renee mean anything in French? That would be good to know, but I'm not going to look it up right now. I guess we're done. We're close to the end here. We have time to get out.
When they first said that little, one Renee who lives and one who dies, my first thought was, does Picard have to make sure his nephew gets killed?
Mm-hmm.
In order to, he has to make sure this woman goes into space, and then he also has to make sure that his nephew dies horribly in a fire. Or whatever.
Yeah, before he leaves, he should take there's a scene where he just takes the batteries out of the smoke detector and then beams out of there, and that's the end of Renee.
Yeah. That house, man, full of just working old pistols and guns.
Yeah. And secret Batman behind the clock stairways that you can get down into the basement with.
Picard just knew that there was a box with a gun in it that had bullets in it.
Yep. Also, he shoots the gun out of the guy's hands and then shoots the lock off the door.
Because life means something to him, Wes.
Before we go, I'm disappointed you didn't mention your well-known hatred for unnecessary travel, which is all Rios does in this episode.
Jesus Christ,
he goes from here to there, he gets stuck there for a minute, and then he comes back, and that's the end of it.
Unbelievable.
Also, final
on
point.
top of that,
why did Soong why did he tell Soong that the gun was going to explode when he could have killed him?
Great question.
Oh my God.
The other thing that I thought was fucking hilarious is when it's just Raffi and Seven staring down 50 fucking special forces Borg guys, and they're like, when we get out of this, and she's like, we're not getting out of this, and she's like, I know, we're not getting out of this. And then they disappear, and then they just show up in the ship, and they've got like a cut over their eye and are kind of dirty. And it's like, all right, I guess they just killed their way through a bunch of special forces guys and made it onto the ship, no problem. Excellent.
They did it.
Great.
All right, patrons. Thanks very much for listening. I apologize. I do feel a dullness in my heart for these episodes at this point. And it's also, I kind of feel like we're treading water because the same complaints are happening. Now, this is our typical New Trek thing where like the first 5 episodes, we have sort of ideas about what's going wrong. And then after about 8 or 9 episodes, you're like, who gives a shit? Like this is just going to wrap up and it's never going to be any better. So I feel like I'm in that sort of state of mind.
Do you think that between the release of the teaser for season 3, excuse me, and the fact that they're debuting Strange New Worlds on the same night as the finale, like they know that this season sucks?
Yes, I think they know that this is bad. I would have a hard time thinking if anyone thought that this is good. And what's tangential to that question, here's my question to you. How many are they going to clear the board with the cast to enable TNG cast to take over in the 3rd season?
I don't know.
Is Rios going to remain in the past?
I feel like he probably should. Like, what the hell's he
Jurati
doing
will be
in the
with the
future?
Borg. Yeah, Rios will stay back with this. You know, I don't really think that he's earned calling this his family, but it seems that that's what they want him to do. He can stay there.
Yep.
7 will remain because 7 is a brand IP that people care about.
Yep.
Raffi can fuck off. No one really cares about Raffi. And
you know that
Raffi.
she's sticking around. You know that she's sticking around.
She's sticking around, really?
Yeah.
Does that mean Elnor has to stick around too?
Probably. Yeah.
I hope they clear the board. I don't even care anymore. Like fuck internal integrity or whatever to the show. Just like clear the cast out and bring the other TNG cast on and screw up their stories for a season, then call it a day.
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm dreading is like I don't know who wrote on this 3rd season, but like I hope they hired somebody that knows the voice of these characters, because I'm listening to this dialogue and just cringing thinking about Beverly Crusher or Geordi saying lines like this, and I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah, because Riker comes through Frakes' performance more than anything, I think. So he can kind of get away with lines, but yeah, like Dorn. I think Dorn as Worf. Dorn as Worf will be terrible potentially. We'll see. We also don't know how important they're going to be to the story.
Maybe we'll finally get to see him work through the trauma of killing that kid in the soccer game.
Yep. Yeah, really massage that pain right out of himself.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was one of the low points of DS9, and it's still a little head and shoulders above this. All right, we're done. Star Trek Picard. That's the 9th episode. It was called Hide and Seek. We'll be back with the final episode next week, whatever it's called, and then Strange New Worlds after that. Are you more positive or more negative on Strange New Worlds at this point?
I am legitimately looking forward to that show because I'm really curious to see what they do with it, and if it's by some miracle better. And I'm just curious to see what the format's going to be, and I'm looking forward to that one a lot more than I am the finale of this one.
Yeah, I'm Strange New Worlds. I'm interested in the format, I think, more than anything. As we talked about before, like the teaser structure they've shown has been interesting to me. Like characters actually have a description and a personality, it seems like. So we'll see if it even does somewhat more of a standalone tale of the week type approach. I think I'd be interested in that, as opposed to, what Star Trek Picard has pioneered, which is take 2 episodes of television and stretch it out to 10 and then think that that's something remarkable to do.
Yes.
All right, we're done. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with the finale. See ya.